Tareq, welcome. Thank you for joining me on Raw. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for your interest in what we do and for having me.
Before we dive into really, really fascinating work, and there's so much to talk about, tell us a little bit about you and your background and who you are and what brought you to the field of environmental diplomacy, which, is an interesting combination of words that we'll talk about as well.
Yeah, the region that we live in needs understanding and trust between the people who share this region. And I grew up in East Jerusalem, and I finished my high school during the first Intifada, where the tension was very high. And I had the opportunity to interact with my Jewish neighbors in kibbutz Ramat Rachel. So that was my first interaction with my Jewish neighbor, and that stayed inside me. And because of the Intifada, I had to leave the country and go to study in Turkey for 12 years. I returned to Israel to the Weizmann Institute. I worked there for 3 years, then 2 years in Minneapolis and in Minnesota. And when I heard that the Arava Institute is looking for someone to establish the Center for Renewable Energy, I said, this is the place I want to be, for many reasons. The most important ones is because it's a place that connects people, brings people together. And the second important reason, because it's in a kibbutz. We are located in kibbutz Keturah. And I wanted to give my wife and my daughters the same opportunity I had when I was, a kid in kibbutz Ramat Rachel, to interact firsthand with our Jewish neighbors. So this is how I joined the Arava Institute. I'm a strong believer in the power of science and environment as a diplomacy tool to bring people together. We share the same environment in this region, the same environmental challenges. We live under the threat of climate change, and we can convert this challenge into a diplomacy tool to bring people together, not only to cope with the impact of climate change, but also to connect people, to build the bridges, and to give them the opportunity to humanize each other, to see the human in the other. And this is what is lacking in this region. So this is how I come to this world. I saw the impact of, direct interaction with the other myself. I saw how powerful it is, and I wanted to continue in this path.
It seems like the two areas that you're working with, both diplomacy, seeing the other, working together across borders, and climate, are two areas, with, I wouldn't say insurmountable challenges, because you're addressing some of the challenges successfully, but they become even more challenging. Yesterday, I was at the supermarket in Tel Aviv, and I always bring my bag, like a good European Belgian. I bring my bag with me because I don't want plastic bags. And every supermarket I go to, I say no, I don't need a plastic bag. And they look at me like, why? Yesterday, I said to this guy, I look at this plastic bag, and immediately what I see is 1,000 years from now, the same plastic bag and in kind of micro bits, and the fish is eating it and dying, and I just can't. So I have my bag. And he was like, I've never thought about that. I never really known that plastic bags can, stick around for that long. And I thought, oh my God, like, if the guy who hands out hundreds of plastic bags per day, he's never been exposed to any content about the environment, what does that say about our society? And of course, this is very kind of pinpointed example, but so I kind of feel like you're dealing with very, very big challenges. And on the diplomacy side, since October 7th, I'm wondering, is diplomacy still possible? And is care for the environment in a region where so many people are in a state of kind of psychological survival, sometimes physical? Do people care about the environment and about dialogue?
They do. And I will not be surprised if our politicians will care about that too very, very, very soon. I think with the change in our climate, the disasters that we see, that will change the whole perspective of politicians on how they approach climate change in our region. We hear what's happening in Turkey, in Iraq, in Syria, also in Iran. And these countries have, huge rivers, and they suffer from the lack of water. When it comes to our region, people think, environment is, less plastic, less waste, less wastewater. That's very important. However, we live in a region that is under the threat of the climate change. We are considered as a hotspot when it comes to climate change. The increase in temperature, the shift in seasons, the increased salinity of the soil, the increased salinity of the aquifers, of the underground water. Mainly in the Jordan Valley area. And the Jordan Valley is considered as, the food basket for Jordan, Palestine, and Israel. And we know that the salinity there is increasing. Farmers are leaving their land. If you look at the population growth in the Jordan Valley, you see that it's declining. That does not mean that, people are not doing kids. No, they do. But these kids migrate. These kids are not staying in that region. The number of farmers is declining. Why? Because of climate change. They don't have the high quality water they used to have, the high quality soil that they used to have. And farming becomes very challenging for them. And when people migrate, that increases the instability in the region. People migrate to Ramallah, to Europe, to the US, and that, increases the instability. And this is a first degree security issue. This is just a small example for the Jordan Valley, and the same thing also for the Delta of the Nile in Egypt, which is house for 15 to 17 million people. Most of them live on agriculture, on farming, and we know that Delta is also under the threat of climate change, the rise in the sea level, and besides that, the increase of temperature and acidity of the Mediterranean, and the fishing sector, the invasive species that we see in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Israeli shores. All of these, big challenges. And add to that, the conflict that we live in. So you live in a region that shares the natural resources, and you live in a region that is under the threat of climate change, and you live in a region that has the conflict. When I say we share the natural resources, I really mean it. There is no single aquifer, groundwater, in this region that is not shared. Every aquifer is shared between Israel and its neighbors: Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, the West Bank, Gaza, Sinai, and we have to work with each other. Look, I'm a Palestinian. I have an Israeli citizenship. I go to Jenin, Nablus, Hebron, Bethlehem, and I meet people, not only scientists or students. I meet farmers, I meet normal people in the market. And at the same time, I go to Akko, Yafo, Beersheba, Tel Aviv, and I meet people. And when you speak to these people, you see that they are interested in same things. They're not happy with what's going on. They want high quality education. They want high quality life, and they believe in peace. Both Israelis and Palestinians, and they're open to that. However, at the same level, they doubt that there is a partner on the other side. And that is because of the lack of connection between Israelis and Palestinians. And we always say the Palestinians lost the support and empathy of the Israeli society. And the Israeli society lost the empathy and support of the Palestinian society. It's not because we are evils on both sides. No, we're good people on both sides. But the lack of connection, the lack of bringing people together caused us to believe in all kinds of stereotypes and the fear that politicians play on. So environment, climate change, it's a threat, impacts everyone in the region, but at the same time, it should be common interest and a tool to bring people together around certain things because it impacts their daily lives. I'm talking about environmental diplomacy. It can be high-tech diplomacy. It can be health diplomacy. It can be a lot of, agricultural diplomacy. If every sector tries to have an element of bringing Palestinians, Israelis together, we can change this reality and build understanding. And I see that not only through the work that we do at the Arava Institute, but I see that also through our academic program, which is 1/3 Israeli Jewish, 1/3 internationals, and 1/3 Arabic speakers from Jordan, Morocco, West Bank. We used to have students from Gaza, giving these students the opportunity to live together for 4 months at the Arava Institute in kibbutz Keturah. When you are in the Arava, the Arava is in the middle of nowhere. And when you have a kibbutz there and have these Palestinians, Israelis, Jordanians living together for a semester or two, they will have enough time to discuss everything, to have a dialogue about family stories, personal stories, culture, the conflict. and they build understanding of the other. And understanding does not mean that we agree. We disagree on a lot of things. I disagree with my wife on a lot of things, but I trust her. And this is what we need: understanding that leads to trust. We really need that, and that is the major disaster that happened to this region. The disconnection between the people of the region.
One of the sentences I read on the Arava website is it says, "In the hyper-arid, drought-stricken Middle East, one resource is more precious than water: trust." And so, in a moment when trust feels like the thing we've all lost, like you said. Israelis have lost the empathy and the trust of Palestinians and vice versa. You are heading an institute which almost has trust as its curriculum with Palestinians and Jordanians and Israelis living together. So I wonder how October 7th and the war since, has that changed how students interacted with each other, trusted each other? Have you felt a breakdown, perhaps even more than before, in trust, an increase of stereotyping, like you mentioned? I would call it more than that. There's a real dehumanization on both sides. When in trauma, what happens is the part of the brain that is in charge of compassion and seeing the other and nuance is just shut off. You're just in survival. Did you feel like you could continue going and trust could still be built in the last 2 years, or was there a real breakdown?
What happened on October 7th is horrible. I think there is no word that describes what happened on October 7th. And with, the shock, the trauma, I think caused people to pause and to question a lot of things. But October 7th was a great proof for the Arava Institute that this methodology is working. Sure. I'm very proud to say that we did not lose any graduate of the Arava Institute, any alumni, and any Arab partner since October 7th. That's the power of dialogue. That's really the power of, seeing the human in the other. We even managed to widen our partners network after October 7th. Now we work with Palestinian organizations, both in Gaza and in the West Bank, with Jordanian organizations, with Moroccan organizations that we never worked with before October 7th. These are new partnerships to us. That does not mean that it was easy. No, it was really very complex. But the most powerful thing is, despite the pain, we refused to see the other as an enemy. And that's the power of humanizing the other. We continued the work. The amount of solidarity, empathy between the communities that we work with was incredible. To see the support of Israeli students to their classmates in Gaza, trying to fundraise for them to leave Gaza, to have our Palestinian partners in Ramallah offering their homes to our staff members who are in Tel Aviv during the Iran war, because saying Ramallah is safer than Tel Aviv, come live with us. This is during the war with Gaza. And that is the power of this environmental diplomacy, giving people the opportunity to work with each other. I'll give you an example of, the power of really bringing people together. Besides, the inviting people to come live in Ramallah, you go to the campus of the Arava Institute and see Palestinians, Jordanians, Israelis, and you see how they interact with each other. Once I was at the campus, and the Jordanian woman student was going to do her laundry, and she saw that the washing machine is full, the laundry is full, and she shouted to one of the Jewish Israeli students and said, "You know what? You're exactly like my brother. You never take your clothes from this machine." It's like she said that, and she did not even think or recognize that she said, "You are exactly like my brother." It was, for her, it was like a normal sentence for both of them. But that is, example of, by living together, seeing the human, seeing the common interests is really powerful. And another example, we take our students for a dialogue trip in the region, and one of the places that we go to is Yad Vashem. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, we had students from Gaza, and we arrived there, and one of the Israeli Jewish students, a woman, looks at the Gazan student and says, well, look, I did my national service here as a guide in Yad Vashem. Let me give you the tour. She gives him the tour, and toward the end of the tour, he says, Odelia, now I understand why you Jewish people needed the state. To hear this from Gazan, that he never lived outside of Gaza, his first interaction with Israelis was through the Arava Institute. Probably he disagrees, but he understands. And that's the most important thing that we need. The communication after October 7th with our Gazan partners in Gaza continued. We did not stop at all, despite the pain that we have. And it's extremely, extremely painful to have space in your heart for the pain of the other, the pain of October 7th, and also the pain of what's happening in Gaza. It's extremely painful, as I said, but it's extremely human. And this is the nature of the region that we live in. What drives our work, what keeps me in this business is the impact. I see that with our partners. I see that with our students, how they come and what they become, what they do when they go back to their communities, what they do when they go back to their universities and become professors and impact thousands of people. This is the region that I look for. This is Israel that I want to see. This is Palestine that I want to see. I do it because it's good for my people. And, when I say my people, they can be Jewish, they can be Palestinians. And I know that our Palestinian partners do this work because it's good for the Palestinians. So this is what motivates us. This is what keeps us in this business.
It sounds like, the Arava Institute and where you live, like you said, in the Arava, is a kind of, it's a beautiful testament to what can happen. But when you look at it in the kind of wider region and global context, it can feel somewhat like a bubble, like a utopia. Do you ever feel like when you pop your head out of the bubble, when you see the level of dehumanization, do you ever lose hope? Do you have moments of like darkness where you feel this is a drop in the ocean, or is it just your nature to really focus on the important work and on the beauty that surrounds you, the humanity?
As I said, I don't have the luxury to lose hope, and I never lost hope. The foundation for that is seeing the impact of our work and knowing the people of this region. That's what keeps me hopeful. It's right. It's a bubble. We educate 80 to 120 students a year, but I believe that other organizations can do similar things as we do. But I'm sad. It really makes me very sad to see people who want to disconnect, want to force people to leave from West Bank or Gaza. That makes me very sad because they really don't understand the other, and they never had the interaction with the other. To see the other as an enemy, it's painful. It's painful for those who have that feeling because they don't understand the situation on the ground. You travel between Jericho and Beit Shan in Kvish 90. When you see Palestinian cars and then an Israeli cars, you see that if we manage to share a highway, we can manage to share other things. You see that thing also in the West Bank. Not everyone on the other side wants to kill the other. And I won't exaggerate if I say you have 90-95% of people who really wants a real peace.
There's this idea that nature knows no borders, but human beings do. So nature, climate change does not distinguish between Israel and Jordan and Palestinian territories, etc., Egypt, but we do. And therefore, in a region where there is a lot of conflict, the cooperation might be less than in a region where there's peace. How do people here view the importance of climate change? Do you think at like the highest levels, people do have an awareness of the importance of working together on the environment? Like you said, there's no aquifer that in some way isn't shared. So there really is this need for cooperation with our neighbors. How does that work? Do you feel like there is still an ability to cooperate and to understand the kind of shared destiny of living in this earth together when there is conflict and when there's kind of this sense that survival or more immediate things are threatening us?
First of all, I think we need to educate the people of this region that dealing with the climate change alone will never work, because we share the natural resources of this region. Convincing people, it's very easy because it's a need in the region. The farmers, the communities in the West Bank, the communities in Gaza, in Israel need water and need clean water. It's not enough for Israel to make sure that, the aquifer is clean, because it can be polluted by Jordanians or Palestinians or settlements. So working with each other is very important to protect these natural resources. I'll give you the example of the West Bank. 70% of the villages in the West Bank are not connected to a sewage network. Houses in these villages, they use septic tanks, and most of them are not very well insulated. So the sewage infiltrates into the mountain aquifer, which is shared between the West Bank and Israel. So for me to go install an off-grid wastewater treatment plant in Nablus or in Jericho or in Ramallah, I don't only solve an environmental issue, but I protect the shared natural resource. And we do that. We do that in Nablus. We do that in the Jordan Valley. And when I say do that, we've been doing this for a decade, and we did that after October 7th. And our Israeli Jewish team still goes to Nablus to maintain and train the Palestinians on how to use these systems. So this is one example of projects that we implement in the region. Convincing people is, as I said, it's easy because it impacts their daily life. They are in need for, clean water. They are in need for any type of water for agriculture. They need energy to pump water, because the over extraction makes it harder and harder to pump water from the aquifer. So when you train farmers in Jordan, in the West Bank, and in Gaza on how to use solar energy to pump water, how to use solar energy to desalinate water, and we do these things in these areas to continue the agricultural activities.
I think you also mentioned that Israel, on the one hand, is safe because it created all these technologies like desalination and has a very strong power grid. On the other hand, you mentioned it's like an energy island, meaning if ever there's a cyber attack or a major problem, we're kind of on our own. Can you talk a little bit more about that and why you think that's, for example, one of the examples for Israelis to understand the importance of collaborating with neighbors, whether they are neighbors with whom we have peace treaties or not?
Yeah. First of all, we all know that a stable neighbor means I have a stable home. And water is very important for the region, helping Jordanians and Palestinians to have the right know-how and the technology to protect shared environmental resources and to produce water that contributes to the stability of this region, not only in Jordan and the West Bank, but also stability there means stability in Tel Aviv. And I will not exaggerate if I say stability here means stability in the rest of the world. We saw that after October 7th. When it comes to Israel, Israel is an energy island. The Israeli grid is not connected to any other country for now. Israel is a country that is blessed by a very high amount of solar radiation. There was a lot of wonderful work around, 2009, 2010, where the renewable energy market in Israel was blooming, and there was a lot of enthusiasm that this is the future of Israel. Then Israel explored the natural gas, and they decided not to invest enough in renewables. And we don't see that a country that is blessed with this amount of solar radiation generate enough renewable electricity. Look, with the extreme weather conditions that we have, extreme cold waves, extreme heat waves, every year we break the record in Israel for electricity consumption. We're lucky that we have air conditioners. If you look to Europe, we see that thousands of people die every year because of heat waves. In Israel, they don't, because we have air conditioning. However, if a cyber attack or terror attack on one of the power stations during one of the extreme weather conditions, that will cause a lot of casualties in Israel. Connecting Israel to its neighbors is very crucial to have that stability and security of the supply for the electricity, and reliance on each other, on Jordan, Jordan relies on in Israel. That also contributes to the stability of the region. We saw that on water. We saw that between Israel and Jordan on natural gas. We saw that between Israel and Egypt on natural gas. So people think twice before they take any decision because they know that I rely on this country for something, and that contributes more and more to the stability. And besides that, also increases the interaction between the governments and the people of the region.
During the war, there was a lot of controversy whenever international bodies or international actors used the term genocide for what's happening in Gaza. There was another term which fewer people know, which is ecocide, which means destroying the ecology of another population. One of the things that I think is not talked about much here in Israel is the level of really ecological devastation that is happening there with sewage everywhere in the streets, pollution levels, epidemics coming back, preventable diseases. Can you tell us more about the kind of scale of the devastation there, and also whether it in any ways also impacts Israelis? Does the kind of ecological climate devastation there eventually also impact Israeli children?
Indeed, it does. Look, we're talking about 10 kilometers from between, the Eastern Mediterranean or the Gaza Shoal or the Gaza envelope, maximum 10, 15 kilometers. The aquifer, the coastal aquifer is shared between Israel and Gaza. That means all of this sewage will go into the shared aquifer. Not only that, it's the streams in the Eastern Mediterranean are south-north, which means all the pollution that goes into the Gaza shoals reaches Ashkelon in a few hours. So what happened in Gaza will not stay in Gaza. That also, besides the diseases that will airborne diseases, the diseases for the plantations that will indeed reach Israel. What happened to the environment in Gaza is horrible. It's totally destroyed. But I also believe that in the power of nature that will restore itself. But it needs a lot of interaction from us on really how to treat what happened. Air pollution. Look, it's besides all of these greenhouse gas emissions from the army machinery, from the explosions, from all other things. Gaza had, hundreds of tons, if not thousands of tons of asbestos. And that all of it is now on the soil and sand of Gaza. And that might also infiltrate into the aquifer, or the powder of the asbestos may arrive to Israel. There's a lot of work that needs to be done with Gazans right now to really have soil samples, air samples, water samples, and try to work together to remediate this environment.
Is there anyone in this current government that you feel has a willingness, the courage, the desire to work with partners, even if it's, like we mentioned, it's in a way it's for selfish reasons because nature doesn't distinguish between borders. But is there the courage in this government, at least here in Israel, to remediate, for example, some of the environmental hazards in Gaza, even if it is just because eventually our children might be affected as well?
Look, this region lacks leaders. We have a lot of politicians and not leaders. A leader who think about the future of his nation, the future of his country. If we all look, Palestinian Israelis, what happened to us in the last 30 years, we understand that there were no leaders. No leaders really think to stabilize this region with the future of our generations in this region. What is going on right now on both sides just widens and deepens the disconnection between Israelis and Palestinians. And this serves actually the extremists on both sides. Stability, giving people hope, giving people jobs, giving people, high quality life, having people think twice about losing what they have. This is how you stabilize the region. People in Gaza used to work for 6 shekels a day. 6 shekels. These are university graduates. And, I give you 20 shekels and you go dig a tunnel for me. So everything that was done by the Palestinians, by the PA, and also Israel, I think led to what happened to us. And if you look the continuation of these actions, this just will widen the problem. Any action that is taken right now is just a painkiller. If actions or policies that we design do not take into consideration the people of the region, the next generations, we are talking about hundreds of thousands of young Israelis who were in the Miloim, who were in the army. We are talking about 1.5 million Gazans that are below the age of 35 that both has the trauma. We need to deal with this. We cannot deal with this with the continuation of disconnection, the continuation of punishing people, the continuation of leaving the arena for the extremists on both sides. So to answer your question, does anyone in this government has the courage to treat that? I don't think so. I don't think so. When I said we don't have leaders, leader takes into consideration that I might lose the next election because I thought about my nation. Because my nation or my country comes first, even if I lose election next time.
It's like when I have to take very unpopular decisions with my children, there's always the desire that, for them to like me more than to do the right thing. I always make parenting analogies, but I think with politicians, in many ways, it's the same. It's having the courage to make an unpopular decision at the risk of losing votes. Have you ever thought of going into politics? My husband and I, this morning, we were we were reading the news together and seeing some of the stories that are coming out of Israeli politics, but of course also the politics of our neighbors. It's just so astounding. You can't help but laugh about it. But of course, it deserves all our tears. And he said, politics in Israel attracts the dreg of society, and that's a Yiddish word for the sewage. And I always wonder why there are not more people with the wisdom, with the compassion, with the courage, with the leadership that go into politics. Is that something you ever thought about?
No, not at all. I was in the public service for 3 years. I'm a scientist, and my world is different. I think everyone can contribute to this region in different ways, and investing in youth, investing in the next generation, I think it's more important for me than to go to the politics. You have to be built for that. And just one comment on what you said about, raising kids. I heard this phrase from a friend who said sometimes you have to be very tough on the people that you love. And that's, correct for family, correct in the business, and correct when you become a leader.
So you're, in many ways, working with the next generation, some of whom may become leaders in different fields. What gives you hope about this generation of people that you are training at the Arava Institute?
What gives me hope is actually they see that there's something not working. They blame us on that. They always say, we ruined this world and we are trying to give you tools on how to fix it, both in the environmental aspects and also in the political aspects. Gives me hope that they are not happy with the situation and they are very enthusiastic and courage to do this change. They are open to speak with the other. They are open to dialogue. And when they come to the Arava Institute, they even become more and more open to dialogue and to hear things that they don't like to hear. And that's actually the basics of dialogue. And they create this really understanding how you came to that point. And our generation and the previous generations did not have that skill.
Where do you think that your own ability to keep your heart open, where does it come from? Is it, you think, something that you were taught? Is it a value that was present in your family growing up? Is it your own personal temperament? And are the people around you, the Palestinians specifically, do they feel the same way? Or do you feel like some of their hearts are more closed?
I think I was fortunate to, first of all, to be raised in a family that is open to the other. my father has and still have a lot of Jewish friends. We used, probably every other Saturday morning to have a breakfast with my father's friends who are Jewish. I was fortunate really to have that opportunity to be in kibbutz Ramat Rahel and interact with the young people and to have that first interaction. And I'm fortunate to be East Jerusalemite, which means I can go to the West Bank and I can go to Israel and interact with the two societies. And that builds in me the understanding of the both societies, understand the people and the complexities there. These factors actually shaped my personality. Look, we all humans, despite the ideologies that we have, despite the fear that we have. If we try to focus on common things between Israelis and Palestinians, we will see that there's like 90-95% similarities, and we try just to focus on the differences between us. I'm fortunate enough, to understand that Islam encourages and pushes people to peace and not to war. That understanding of Islam does not allow me to be extremist. That's my understanding of Islam, which comes from Silm, which is Shalom, and that is what Islam is. So having all of these factors, I think shaped my personality and shaped the way that I decided to go in.
When speaking with fellow Palestinian citizens of Israel, do you feel like sometimes you're the odd man out, or are there more people than we think who are really still able to see the other one as their neighbor, as a human being, as somebody that they want to live in peace with?
I think there are a lot of people on both sides, in West Bank and Gaza, in Jordan, in Israel, both Arabs and Jewish. However, coexistence, peace, democracy, human rights, these are things that are not granted, and nothing is granted. And we see this in this crazy world. We see it here. It should be always on our agenda. We need to speak loud enough about the importance of these things. We need to educate our kids about the importance of these things and not to leave the arena for extremists.
What are some of the technologies, perhaps Israeli technologies, that are really kind of cutting edge and exciting for you right now in the field of climate?
Agri-tech, the green tech, the use of Internet of Things when it comes to agriculture and environment. All of these technologies, if we use them in a proper way, if we manage really to expand the use of them around the world, that will help us a lot to cope with climate change. High tech is important, but the most important thing is education. And you started your conversation talking about the plastic bags. Everything starts with education, and to educate the next generation on how to use things more efficiently and to reduce our consumption. This world is balanced. The nature is balanced. And when you mess with this balance, the nature reacts. So we need to educate the next generation and really how to be balanced in every aspect of their life.
So the most important question is, should I keep going to the supermarket with my cloth bags?
100%.
Yes. And do you do that as well?
We do that as well. And actually, the supermarket that we have, next to our home, when my kids go there, they give them the goods without the plastic bags, and they tell them, your father doesn't like that.
And also that, when I went yesterday to that supermarket, the guy was open to it, and he said, I never thought about it, but I'll think about it. So little things that give us hope, little interactions that remind us that people sometimes just don't know better, and if you tell them different, they're willing to try, and that's true in so many different areas. So I hope this conversation will give our listeners some hope, and that your hope also will be contagious. It has been for me. So I really want to thank you, Tareq, again for joining me and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me.